Hey guys, this is Al here. I hope you're keeping safe with this virus insanity. I'm over at the shop right now. I thought I'd come over here and do a little bit of work. This weekend I'm going to focus my attention on a car that I've been neglecting for a while, and I kind of want to drive it because it's a fun car. Let me just turn the camera around and I'll show you. So what I'm talking about here is my 68 Cadillac Deville Convertible, and I've had this car, I don't know, probably 11 months, 10 months, something like that. A fair bit of time. It was just getting warm when I bought it, and really haven't done much to it apart from installing a trunk floor gasket for the trunk channel, for the rain channel on the trunk, and the basic maintenance. I had to bleed the brakes when I bought it because the brakes was completely non-functional, and the power steering was leaking. Initially it was from the low pressure return hose, but now again it's leaking. It's popped up another leak from the high pressure line. But been tinkering with it. We did some work on it yesterday, so you can see over here on the Bentley we've got the manual out. What we ended up doing is replacing the door pins on this door. So this door was a real nuisance. When you'd open it, it would just fall down, and then it was, you had to slam the door really hard to shut it, and you had to pull the door really hard to open it. It made it impossible to use, and also caused some damage. I mean, the door handle over here got ripped open, so I've got to figure that out now that the door's fixed. But we end up replacing the door pins, which wasn't that easy of a job. I mean, it was quite an effort, actually. I don't know whether you can see the door pins from over here, but let me see if I can show you. I should have really taken the video yet. So I've got my trusty cell phone. You can see the door pins just ever so slightly over here. There are replacement ones, but what end up having to happen is we end up having to remove this panel over here, and then practically take the entire fender off to get to them. But once they're off, I mean, the replacing the pin itself wasn't that hard. The pins come with a bushing. I'll show you a kit. This is the kind of job that you take for granted, and it really does take an amount of time to, you end up basically destroying like 3 or 4 bushings over time. So this is basically the kit. It comes with a door pin, which is a lot longer than the factory one. I think it's really designed for multiple cars, including pickup trucks. And then you get these bushings, and there's 2 types of bushings. There's this one, which is the larger oversized bushing, and there's a smaller type. We end up just breaking one of these, so we got lucky. And the trick to it, we've done this before, on trucks, and normally what you have to do is you have to hammer the bushings in, which we you always end up breaking them when you try to hammer these bushings. So, whoops, I'm going to ruin my corniche just doing this. Should have put it somewhere else. So the trick to it is we got ourselves a little bolt with a wing nut, and we use this as a pressing tool. So we kind of thread the wing nut all the way in, and then we use it. We use a ratcheting wrench to ratchet down on the bolt and squeeze the bushing in. So this is kind of effectively like a special tool that we built that lets us press the bushings in, and by pressing them in, you don't break them, because they're made out of brass, and they're very soft, so they tend to break very easily if you're not careful. But that's what we end up using. So that's done now, and the the rear latch had to be adjusted once the door was put on. But all in all, it wasn't a terrible job. The fender kind of gave us a hard time because there's some bolts that were rusted, and the car already has some kind of damage over here in the front, and that didn't make things easier because there were some bolts that were in the way, but we managed to push the metal out of the way a little bit without deforming it too much and making it look right. So I think today what we're going to do is we're going to go back into the door itself and try to fix the door handle on the inside so that we can pull the door shut. And then the other thing we're going to try to fix is a window, because right now if you lower the window on this car it will drop from the front and just remain on the back. So there's something wrong with either the bushings or the regulator or something else over there. So I want to go in there and try to find out what's going on. And I also have a couple of other jobs. I've got a high pressure hose for the power steering that needs to go on, and a set of engine mounts because the engine mounts are bad on this. So get this car on that lift and see if we can get these things taken care of. Hey guys, back on the Cadillac again. So after my last update, what we did is we figured out what was wrong with the electric windows. I'm not sure if I pointed this out in my last video, but the electric window, when you try to lower the driver's side down, it would fall from the front, right from here. The back would stay up, but the front would fall down. And what we figured out is that one of the rollers had failed. It's this roller, and it just basically broke. So I was able to go to O'Reilly's and buy a pack of 3 for about $8. I guess they're a repair kit, and we were able to use. There were 3 different ones, so I guess what they did is they included 3, and whichever one you needed, you end up using. But we end up basically finding one that would work, that we could bolt onto the window regulator, and it fixed that problem. What we did next is we pulled the dash, and so you can see the dash is right here. It's hanging upside down on the soft top. But we pulled the dash. We were trying to figure out a few things that were going on with this car that wasn't right. One of the things is that none of the interior lights worked, and what they did instead is they installed on the dash itself. None of the interior lights on the dash worked, and what they did is they installed some kind of strip lighting that was mounted to the headlight switch, and it worked with the rheostat. Let me see if I can turn it on. You can see that, and I guess they bypassed the regular instrument cluster lighting. So we're trying to figure out what's going on over there and whether we can get rid of that junk and go with the factory wiring. The HVAC control doesn't work either, so it doesn't operate the blower, although we did power the blower and the blower does work, but the climate control doesn't function at all. I've been told that this could be a vacuum transducer, which is like a long cylindrical device. I'll try to include a picture of it in the video so that you can see what it is, but we think that might be the problem, or it might be something else, but we've got to do a whole bunch of wiring and trace a bunch of wiring. We also have the stereo that's completely non-functional, and you've got these things over here, a bunch of wire ties and hacked wiring behind the dash. So trying to figure out what all that's about. I'm sorry for the low light because it's, we're in the shop and the roof's up, but that's pretty much it. So right now we're trying to figure out all these problems with the wiring inside this car. I'd like to get the stereo working. I'd also like to get the HVAC system working so that we could use this car during the summer months. It's unbearable with the roof up, and even more unbearable with the roof down in Texas. So that's the plan. So that's one of the projects we're working on as well. I'll give you an update once we get done, but that's pretty much it for this week. I think it'll take a while before we can figure all this stuff out. Thank you very much. Take care.